Hi, welcome to our first official day of HBM 270 this term. And for those of you who were able to join this morning for our first little overview session that we had at 7 a.m., that was awesome to see you there. And for those that weren't able to make it, please go out to the announcements in the campus space and watch that real quick. It takes about 35 minutes or so, but it'll give you a great snapshot of what to expect in this course as we move along at a pretty rapid pace. Today, we are honored to have with us Mr. Bob Kramer, and my heart and soul smile every time Bob Kramer's part of our group. Bob's been I have a formal introduction about Bob in just a second, but you just need to know that Bob has sort of been with us, holding our hand, guiding us through this project in the Green Thumb Institute since we started. He is a tremendous resource. I always say every chance I get, he's forgotten more about seniors housing and senior living than I'll ever know in my lifetime. But he is connected to everyone and is so highly respected and regarded that he is a good person for you to have in your network. So I encourage you to connect with Bob on LinkedIn, and his profile space is out in Canvas as well. And so with that, I will actually read now this brand is up to Bob and then turn it over to him. Bob Kramer is president and founder of Nexus Insights, an advisory firm that helps clients both inside and outside the aging services field to redefine aging and rethink aging services. Mr. Kramer is also co-founder and strategic advisor of the National Investment Center for Seniors Housing and Care. We know it as NIC, NIC. He is broadly recognized as one of senior living's most influential and high-profile thought leaders and connectors. With over 40 years of industry leadership, he has earned the reputation of agent provocateur. I stumble on this word every single time I say it. Provocateur. In the seniors housing and care industry. He has been described as an ice cutter and scout in identifying industries and trends that will disrupt, and that's a favorite word of Bob's, being a disruptor, disruption, the future of seniors housing, aging services, and aging more broadly. In 1991, Mr. Kramer founded NIC to advance access and choice in seniors housing and care by attracting capital to grow the sector. Under his leadership, NIC became the go-to resource for data analytics for the rapidly expanding seniors housing and care industry, and an acknowledged thought leader for new ideas and trends impacting the provision of housing, services, and care for older adults. Mr. Kramer stepped out of the CEO role in 2017 and continues to serve NIC as a strategic advisor. In 2019, Mr. Kramer conceived of and championed The Forgotten Middle, a landmark study of the health and socioeconomic status of middle-income adults who will be 75 plus in 2029 and their ability to afford private pay seniors housing. The report on the study, published in Health Affairs, was the fifth most read article appearing in this leading health policy monthly journal in 2019. In March 2020, Mr. Kramer launched Nexus Insights to rethink aging from every angle. The firm leverages a network of leading thinkers and thought leaders to develop provocative insights and actionable models to transform the current understanding of aging and catalyze the next generation of aging services. Mr. Kramer was educated at Harvard and Oxford universities and holds a Master's of Divinity degree from Westminster Theological Seminary. Bob is also a steering committee member of the Granger Cobb Institute for Senior Living. We're thrilled to have you, Bob. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It's my privilege to be here, to be with you and to kick off this first class for this course. And Lillian, it's good to see you and have you on live. And for those of you listening to it asynchronously this week, welcome. That was a really generous introduction. I hope I can live up to it. And I'm going to dive right in. So we have a lot that I want to cover in 45 minutes. Nancy and Darcy will be making available my slides as well so that you have a chance to look through them since I won't go into detail on every point. We've talked about Nexus Insights already. Key point, advancing the well-being of older adults through innovative models of housing, community, and healthcare. And as I'll say a little bit more about all three of those pieces are key. What I titled my talk today with you all is the longevity difference, why it matters for you. What do I mean by this? If we were all there live in class together, I'd go around asking everyone their reasons for deciding to sign up and take this course, whether it just looked like an intriguing elective, whether you have a favorite grandmother, or whether or not you think, maybe there's some business opportunities in this field, whatever might be your reason. I want to suggest to you that the issues I'm going to raise today and the topics I want to provide you some input on actually are more important to you and will make more a difference in your lifetime than they actually will be for me. Why? Because I'm 75, and I imagine most of you are are 20, 21, maybe 18, 19, 22. And so put simply, you have far more of your life ahead of you, A. B, you are far more likely than I am to live to 100. And C, and this is the punchline, if you don't change some of the very issues we're going to talk about today and in this course, you will be the one with the most to lose. Why? Because you will be consigned to social, economic, and cultural irrelevance for the last third of your life. There's not enough time to change that as it affects someone like me, but you've got a lot of years ahead of you to really address some of the issues we're going to be talking about. So, if we look at this, I call this the longevity difference. It's about adding life to years. And our society is built for people to retire and die in their 60s and 70s, but many are living to their 80s, 90s, and beyond. And especially for each of you, simply by being in college. And if you finish college, let alone if you get a graduate degree, you have just significantly increased your chances of living to 100 and beyond because of your educational status and attainment. So, as my friend Joe Coughlin at the MIT Age Lab likes to say, what will you do with these extra 8,000 days of your life? Why do I say 8,000 days? It's 8,000 days from 0 to age 22. So most of you are completing that first 8,000 days. You'll have another 8,000 till 44, another 8,000 to 66. And today, when a person turns 66, and if they're a college graduate, if they're a male, they have a life expectancy that's around 84 to 85. And if they're a female, they have a life expectancy of 87 to 89. In other words, another 8,000 days. So rather than just see this as a few years to, quote, fill your bucket list before you kick the bucket, we're talking about a whole new era, a whole new life stage that has not existed before. I call it next stage versus end stage living. And I want to focus on that in some of my remarks because it's key to the value proposition of what is offered in seniors housing and care or in senior living. Put simply, it's about wanting my health span to as nearly as possible match my lifespan. And yes, also my wealth span, what some have called my well span. And it's around an engagement view of aging and retirement that's shaped by growth and opportunity, not by deficits and decline. So back a few years ago, the Stanford Center on Longevity put out what they called the New Map of Life. And some of you be interested enough, you might want to go to their website. They put this out almost 3 years ago now. And it's a map literally for the 100-year life. And reflecting the fact, not only do demographers predict that as many as half of today's 5-year-olds, this was said in 21, can expect to live to the age of 100. But as I said, for those of you in college and those of you that will graduate with a college degree, you're even much more likely to live to 100 or beyond. And this map just indicates some of the huge changes coming, where age diversity is a net positive rather than a negative, where we're really investing. As we invest and society invests in each of you, we're investing in future centenarians, where you'll work more years, but with more flexibility. I was with my grandson on a college visit last year, and we were talking about the fact that he will probably not have one career. He's liable to have multiple careers, and he's liable to take time out at different points within his career to study, to take a break, and then engage in new learning and potentially a whole new career. So if you see on this map, life transitions are a feature, not a bug. They're a feature of life. You may do something before you have kids. You may do something else while you're raising a family. You may do something again in your 50s and now think about what's next. Or you may be like me and think about, what do I want to do next at age 75? So this is all about, and part of that then is, how do we build longevity-ready communities? So 100 years to thrive. So then what's the future? This is the Granger Cobb Institute for Senior Living. What's the future of senior living, and what does it mean for you as a student potentially? I would say, first and foremost, it's an entrepreneur's dream. So if you have any entrepreneurial chops, if you have any interest in any aspect of business or social policy, if you have any interest in technology and data and computers, if you have any interest in hospitality, if you have any interest in architecture and building design, and you can see, I can go right down the list. All of these areas are going to be imploded and exploded with new opportunities and new challenges because of a longevity economy, and because of a society where more and more people have an extra 8,000 days to their lives. So one of the things about the exploding demand is the dramatic decline in caregivers. It's what's called the caregiver support ratio, and this is a map of that. And it's the ratio of folks 45 to 64, the normal age of adult children, to those providing, to those 80 plus older adults. And back in 2015, just 9 years ago, that ratio was 7-to-1, meaning there were 7 people in that adult children age group to every 1 person over age 80. As of in 1 year from this January, that ratio will be 5-to-1. By 2031, it'll be 4-to-1. And by 2044, it'll be 3-to-1. If you don't remember any statistic from this hour we're spending together, I hope you will remember this one, because what that says is the backbone of the entire elder care field and the entire field of long-term care in America has always assumed the family would be there as the backbone of providing the majority of care. But the reality is, there's an exploding number of solo agers, and the family support system just will not be there in the way it has been in the past. So, dramatic decline in family caregivers, exploding demand. There are now more older adults in seniors housing and care communities than we've ever had. So whatever may be the occupancy rate, but the actual number of older adults in communities today is at an all-time high. But at the same time, and this is thinking entrepreneurially, tomorrow's customer, for the most part, doesn't want today's products. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, and we'll get more into this, they think of the products out there today as reflecting their parents' notion of retirement and aging, not theirs. We're also going to see increased market segmentation. If you know very much about the hospitality sector and the hotel sector, if you think about where Marriott was 30 years ago, in terms of its product diversification by price point, by type of traveler, by length of stay, by type of amenities, by style of architecture. That's where the senior living industry is today. And we're going to see over the next 20 to 30 years exploding market segmentation. So by price point, by what folks want, by how they want it delivered, by what type of setting they want it delivered in. We're going to see an intense focus, as I've already suggested, on health and vitality, along with infection prevention, which because of COVID is now just basic table stakes. If you're going to have any type of congregate setting where you're providing housing and any type of services for older adults. And it is what I call, it's a ripe opportunity for disruptive innovation led by new leaders. It's an entrepreneur's dream in terms of market opportunity. Imagine having enormous demand, exploding numbers of demand, at the same time having all the customers driving this demand, demanding and wanting something different from what was there for their parents. And also imagine an industry that was kind of in some ways very monochromatic in terms of the people it served, white, upper middle class for the most part, the price points that served to that, the ways it delivered it, the ways it thought about health and healthcare, and that's all changing. So it's an entrepreneur's dream in terms of pent-up demand, enormous growing demand, but a customer that wants something new and different from what they get today. So the question I'd ask for you, each of you, to ask yourselves is, where might you fit into this? Whatever is your interest or your talent. So we've talked about that. Disruptive innovation. I'm using this phrase from the sort of father of modern thinking about innovation, Clay Christensen, who recently passed away, was a professor at Harvard Business School. And he distinguishes between disruptive innovation and continuous innovation. One's not bad and the other good. In fact, any good company is constantly doing both. In my paraphrasing, translating of Clay Christensen, continuous innovation is doing things better, marketing better, delivering services better, and it's designing products better. Disruptive innovation is doing things completely differently. It's thinking about the customer and how to serve them in completely new and different ways. Think Steve Jobs and Apple as just one illustration. So disruptive innovation, why do I think this is such an unbelievable moment for such disruption and for entrepreneurs and for aspiring young emerging leaders, like I hope each of you will be? Well, I've just listed a few things here, and for time, we're going to have a new customer, and I'm going to go into. We're going to have new products, and I'm going to go into some of that. We're going to have new terminology. I knew Granger Cobb well. I love the Institute, but the very phrase senior housing and senior living will be an anachronism by the end of this decade, and it'll only be investors who will be the last ones to change, who will still be using that terminology, because it's like to boomers holding up a flashing red light that says, we're not interested in serving you. We just serve what your parents wanted. What we served up to your parents is what we're going to serve to you. Active adult, another terrible phrase. Where do you go after you leave active adult? Or adult daycare. Imagine a boomer woman who's fought for 50 years for rights and workplace equality, and now she's going to, in her latter years, go to adult daycare? Forgive me, I just don't think that's going to be very attractive. New locations. It won't be just whether or not you are at home or in the hospital, or at home in the hospital or the senior living community. We're going to see services provided into the home and into the senior living community in ways we never dreamed of or thought possible just a few years ago. Both COVID and technology have dramatically changed that. And might I say, yes, also AI. New price points. rather than just, well, here's the cost, can you afford it? We're going to see an exploding market, a huge market, 16 million folks over age 75 by the turn of the decade who cannot afford what's out there today, but also have too much in resources to qualify for government support in long-term care or in housing, what I've called the forgotten middle, and new payment models, a role of volunteer and volunteer labor, including the older adult themselves, and also whoever holds the healthcare dollar risk, and new payment models for services. So, key drivers of the future. There are many. This is not an exclusive list, but for today, I want to briefly go over 4. 1, a new relationship with our frontline staff, because if you haven't heard before, you will hear in this course, staffing is key. The interaction each day between frontline staff, whether it's dining servers, maintenance staff, or care providers and residents, is the essence of what is provided in this field. And so having those staff treat residents in the way that we want them, the way we're promising and the way you would want them treating your parents, means how do we treat them? Next, new customer arrives. Thirdly, a new understanding of health. And spoiler alert, it's different from healthcare. And lastly, a new centrality of data. As I said, there are many other. I've written about 6. I've written about 12 key drivers, but today we're just going to focus on these 4, and you can go to the Nexus Insights website and learn lots more about other drivers as you have time and interest. So, a new relationship with frontline employees. They are people, not just shift workers, and their life situation matters. COVID was a horrible pandemic and a horrible tragedy that affected so many lives. One silver lining, though, was it forced the whole industry of senior housing and care and of long-term care to think differently about hourly frontline workers. Why? Because suddenly what they did outside their shift mattered. It mattered a whole lot. And whether or not they were going to be exposed on the way home or when they were shopping for food or in their home to COVID and be likely to bring that to work, or whether or not they couldn't come to work because they had sick kids at home and had no one to provide care and the schools were closed, whatever it was. So suddenly, employers had to realize that this is not just you're a shift worker. I don't care what you do outside the shift. As long as you get these 6 tasks done, that's all I care about. No, suddenly we had to care about their lives, and that was a good thing. And what that means is it had to be a relationship, not just a business transaction, where we realize that many of these workers are one step from poverty. Many of them are single parents, especially single mothers. Many are immigrants. Many are dealing with domestic abuse issues. So whether it's immigration problems, domestic issues, childcare issues, safe housing issues, transportation access issues, our industry and employers can't be expected to solve those issues, but they've got to be alongside of their employees, treating them as family in order that they'll treat residents in the same way as family. So expanding our pool of workers. The largest available pool of workers in America today are older adults between the ages of 55 and 85. And as much as I believe we need immigration reform and we need immigrants for our economy, the largest available pool of workers to be tapped today that's sitting there and many of whom want and need jobs are those over age 55. So highlighting purpose-driven work. As one truck driver who now works in our field said to me, he's in his 50s, he'd done for more than 30 years, he'd been a long-distance truck hauler. And he said, it's incredible to me that each day I get up, and as soon as I walk in the door in the community where I'm a staff person, I know I will make somebody's day just by smiling and greeting them. And it says it goes on from there. And the feedback I get from personal relationships just has given me a whole new lease on life, as he put it to me. Prioritizing training and offering career paths, something this industry has not done a good job on, and leveraging technology so that's not to replace staff, but to free them up for more personal interaction and to with residents rather than paperwork and routine, monotonous tasks. So a new relationship with our frontline staff, critical in an industry that is dependent and needs, not just needs labor, but they need a certain type of labor that are really going to engage with and invest in our residents. Now, a new customer arrives with a different take on longevity. What does that mean? The previous customer, the greatest generation, the first half of the so-called silent generation, they were grateful for what I call their accidental longevity, and they're accepting of society's declinist view of aging and retirement. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is my father-in-law, Sam, World War II D-Day veteran, and then at age 62 had a massive heart attack from which he thought he took early retirement, where he'd been a school teacher for years, thinking he only had a few more years to live, to do things that he'd always wanted to do before he died. And that was at 62. At 89, Sam and I visited the war rooms in the Churchill Museum in London when he had been stationed before D-Day outside London, where his job was to teach French to all the officers of the American troops who would be landing on D-Day. And we were going through an exhibit about all the bombs and which bombs in the bombing of London you were afraid of and which ones you didn't worry about. And after pointing out this one bomb that he said everyone knew you would kill you and you had to seek shelter right away, he turned to me and he said, "Bob, can you believe I'm still alive?" And what he meant was he was 89. At 62, he thought he just had a year or two to live. And now here he was 27 years later. And by the way, he lived to 93. He had accidental longevity. He never expected to live that long. And he was just grateful for whatever was offered to him in these bonus years he never expected to enjoy. But contrast that to the new customer, his children, the boomers, and also what I call the Boom X generation, the first half of Generation X. They're determined to thrive with purposeful longevity and reject the declinist view of their future years. Purposeful longevity means I don't just want years added to my life. If it's poor health, poor quality, I don't even want that. No, I want to know what's going to put life into those years. That's purposeful longevity. So that is a very different customer. So to illustrate that, here's a major national survey that was done in 2022 on the perspectives between the greatest generation, that parents' view of retirement, and retirement today as viewed by that Boom X cohort, boomers and the first part of Gen X. Notice the contrast. Parents' retirement, the almost a majority, it's a time for rest and relaxation. And then other things like a continuation of what life was, the beginning of the end. So over 3/4 having these, I would call both passive and negative views, ultimately, of what the retirement was going to be. With a new chapter in life, that next stage living being less than 1/4. Look what's happened one generation later. Retirement today, a new chapter in life, 55%. A continuation of what life was declined significantly. The beginning of the end declined significantly. And a time for rest and relaxation declined significantly. This is a positive, active view of retirement and aging, not a negative or passive view. Or to look at it another way, you have two contrasting visions here. What I would call an aspirational pull model, that's about this stage of life, this next stage, and it's a growth model. It's about how I will grow and learn and change. And it's something that can pull you in versus an avoidance push model. For many people, for instance, being put, and I use that phrase deliberately, by their children into assisted living or into memory care or into skilled nursing is something they want to avoid at all costs because it represents the end of the line, end stage living. And but more importantly, because it's the image and at times the expectation is shaped around deficits and decline. And it is charting your life course based on what you've lost and what you can no longer do, rather than to possibilities and what you're still capable of, and how you can still grow and look forward to the things you can contribute, whatever it may be, your mobility status or even your cognitive abilities. So just to focus on that, the difference here is between what I would call a D-word concept of retirement and aging, which is, again, a declinist view where it's all downhill and where it's shaped by deficits and what you're no longer capable of and can no longer do, versus an aspirational model, which is framed around an E-word concept of retirement and aging. And I have further slides on this in the slide deck in the appendix that you'll have access to. And the E-word concept is around engagement, enjoyment, experience. And it's about growth and learning and also contribution, that I still have something to offer that can be meaningful to others. So the contrasting vision then is for the new customer, what they're looking for is something that they can look forward to and embrace rather than dread. An avoidance model is something you dread being a candidate for and being pushed into, and you want to avoid it to the greatest extent possible. An aspirational model is something, it's a lifestyle you aspire to and you look forward to, and it offers you opportunities. There's still terrific changes. Leaving one's home is always emotional, but making new friends, having the opportunity to do new things, to learn new things, and to still feel you're a contributing, positive member of society, rather than feeling like, well, the continuum of care is just, I'll keep you clean, dry, safe, and secure while you basically go into further decline. And that's not attractive to anybody. So I wrote this in 2017, and now we're switching to a new understanding of health. So first of all, a new relationship with our frontline employees, then a new customer arrives, now a new understanding of health. And I said in the future, healthcare will go to where seniors, especially frail seniors, live, rather than forcing these seniors to go to the hospital or doctor's office to receive their healthcare. Boomer consumers will demand it, technology will enable it, and payers, managed care, and Medicare Advantage plans will pay for it because they believe it will produce meaningful healthcare dollar savings. Though I'm known as a futurist, I didn't see COVID coming, and I didn't see the changes that would bring about. And they have been dramatic. But what I put forward here is something that, because of COVID, happened with a greater sense of urgency than I ever imagined. So a new understanding of health, which is differentiated from health care and leads to a redefining what sort of continuum we're talking about. We have a healthcare system in this country today, even though it's starting to change, that is what I call a sick care model. It's reactive. We wait till you fall or get injured. We wait till you get sick. Then it's curative. We send you to the doctor, and if necessary, to the hospital to fix you so you can return home, and is passive. There's very little the customer can do other than follow the doctor's orders once you get sick or once you fall and have an injury. A well care model, which is where we're going, is predictive to get ahead of bad things happening, it's preventative, and it's participatory. There's a role for the consumer in their maintaining their health. And so we go from what I call a moat around our buildings, which means for private paid senior living, outside of the skilled nursing setting, up until 2020, when COVID hit our industry and hit it hard, many people would proudly say no healthcare takes place in our building. What do you do for healthcare? We have a van with our name on it, and during the day, it takes people to their doctor's office. And at night on the weekends, we have a great relationship with our paramedics to take you to the hospital. Well, in COVID, the doctor's office was closed. No one wanted to be sent to the ER at the hospital because they were overwhelmed. And especially for an older adult, that was the prescription that for not a good experience. And so all of a sudden, with on-demand services and with the discovery that healthcare could be brought to you where you live, rather than forcing you to go to the hospital or the doctor's office, things changed dramatically. And now, with what's called value-based care and a well care model, we put a moat around the hospital because that's the most expensive site of care, A, and B, for older adults, in most instances, not all, but in most instances, that's not a good place for them to go because they're far more likely to acquire hospital-acquired infections there and to come out weaker and less able to be independent. So we are going from a way station for decline as a continuum of care, rather to looking at a continuum of engagement that's about prevention and wellness, and really forestalling that decline through engagement. It's what I've termed a move to home, meaning health is in the home and health care can be delivered in the home, a shift to value rather than volume being how hospitals and doctors are paid. Rather, it's based on, rather than volume, it's about value, the outcomes for the cost. There's a need for partnerships, and there's a centrality of risk-bearing by whoever holds the healthcare dollar risk. So a new understanding of health, along with a new customer, a new relationship with our frontline employees. The new understanding of health is critical. Why? Because suddenly our senior living setting, which houses so many frail elders, houses so many individuals with multiple chronic conditions, the opportunities to provide better outcomes at lower cost and keep people out of the hospital are never greater than they are in senior housing and care communities. So the fourth driver, new centrality of data and analytics, because without them, you cannot customize. For preventive, predictive, and participatory healthcare, data and accessible, usable data in real time is critical. For instance, you can't prevent and you can't predict unless you've got not only a lot of data you can use, but also unless it's real-time accessible. So for all of you that love building different types of platforms, what does not exist today in healthcare, let alone in long-term care and senior care, is an integrated platform where the resident, their family, all of the staff and caregivers in the senior living building, all of the healthcare providers who in any way will touch that individual, and all the payers can all access appropriately in real time the information that's needed so that real-time decisions can be made in the best interest of that resident, rather than taking hours, days, weeks, and even months for approvals and for coordinating information, whether it's about prescriptions or sites of treatment or types of care. It's also, this data is also key for strategic decision-making and partnering. Without real-time, accessible, usable data. And make no one, doesn't misunderstand me. As we all know in our information economy, simply having more data often leads to paralysis. If you have data silos, and you just have more data, basically people tune out to the data more and more. It's got to be data that's usable, that's actionable for strategic decision-making and partnering. And what we're seeing happening with AI and machine learning, what we're seeing happening with regard to taking data silos and integrating them into accessible platforms is going to be critical for the future in all of healthcare, and particularly in senior housing and care. And that's going to also, by the way, include genomic data as well as lifestyle preference data. So it's all kinds of data. And lastly, data is going to be, and analytics, important for purpose matchmaking, for customized, personalized experiences that make life worth living. What do I mean by that? Let me give you one small example. We have 7 grandchildren, including 4 granddaughters. And 2 of those granddaughters are still of an age where they enjoy dolls. And my wife has always been very particular about the types of dolls she wants to provide. And in terms of their authenticity, the materials, the costumes, so forth. And one morning on the first week in November, she exclaimed to me after breakfast, "How do they know?" And I thought it was her online identity had been stolen. And I said, "How do they know what?" And she said, "How do I know this is exactly what I'm looking for?" And what happened is she'd gotten 3 emails that morning, all with the exact type of dolls that she was looking for. And I laughed and said, "I hope and think lovingly, Diane, you've just been mass customized and experienced it as a personalized shopping experience. There's lots of information out there about dolls and people's preferences in dolls. There's lots of information out there about grandparents and especially grandmothers. And thanks to all of your shopping and online shopping, there's lots of information about your shopping habits. And they know that you like to get your shopping done before Thanksgiving, that you usually get going right after Halloween, and that you go online after breakfast in the morning. So the first week after Halloween, at 8:30, between 8:30 and 9 in the morning, you got 3 targeted emails with exactly what you were looking for. You were delighted. It was a personalized, customized experience, but it was actually massive amounts of data used to basically mass customize something you experienced as a personalized experience. That's exactly the opportunity we have in senior housing and senior living today, to create customized, personalized experiences out of all this data without having to have more staff to do all the work to figure out what that would be and how it would be customized and personalized. Retail sector is doing it now. The hospitality sector is beginning to do it, but healthcare is not there yet, and senior housing is not there yet. So the future of senior living, I think, will be what personalized experiences that are metaphors for being alive will we offer our customers, our residents. Now, notice I said metaphors for being alive. I didn't say metaphors for being young. In that same survey from 2021 that I showed you, one of the things that came out of that is that the BoomX cohort that was sampled, chronological cohort, one of their strong messages was they didn't want to be seen as youthful. They wanted to be useful. In other words, useful. I have something to offer to others. I can make a difference. I don't need to pretend or to be treated as though I want to be, forgive me, folks, but 25 or even 45 or even 65. But I want to be useful, not seen as youthful. And so it's metaphors for being alive, for having a sense of purpose, having a sense of connection and inclusion, rather than being parked out to basically decline into an old age home. The nexus of health then, yes, deliberate pun on Nexus Insights, that intersection of housing, healthcare, and community being a key piece, that's where healthy longevity and well-being comes from. And that's going to be the future of aging services and of senior living. And as you look at this Venn diagram and these circles, it's that intersection between housing, healthcare, and community. I've talked some about housing and healthcare. Community is, without creating community, you don't create that sense of belonging and inclusiveness and purpose. It's not just about providing housing and just about providing healthcare or even having the two together. You also have to create community, belonging. So what are new customers looking for? I'd say 5 things, put simply. Extended health span. That's critical. It's about wellness. It's about longevity. And what some people have called, folks want to live long and die short. They don't want to have, they want to do the things now that will enable them to have an extended health span so that they have more life in those extra years. They want a sense of purpose, experiences that make life worth living, well-being, navigation assistance, doing away with the worry about, autonomy, though, a sense of independent agency and sense of control. This is critical. Providing choice, providing a sense that to the maximum extent possible, I'm making the choices for what's next for me. And then personalized lifestyle and experiences, anything but one size fits all. Much of our industry for the last 30 years has been like one size fits all. It won't be that way for the next generation of product, which will be 2030 to 2060. 2020 to 2030 is what I call the experimental transition decade, transitioning from the first period of private pay senior housing and care, 1990 to 2020, serving again the greatest generation and the silent generation, to the next generation of product, 2030 to 2060, marked by new leaders, new customers, new models, new payment mechanisms, new delivery, hopefully led by new leaders, including some of you taking this course. So a housing model for older adults, I'm talking about a lifestyle model. Boomer perception of self-control and choice is paramount. An opportunity to develop a lifestyle product based on the extension of health span. It built on an engagement contributor model with a focus on prevention and wellness. Use of technology to allow self-management, self-direction, personalized, customized services. All of this, I think, is going to lead to more on-demand services, more a la carte, less package. That's a theme I'm sure you'll get into with other speakers in the course and in your classroom about bundling everything up in one fee versus unbundling it and having a la carte. What should be bundled? What's a la carte? What seems like nickel and diming the resident versus what gives them choice and control over what they're paying for. Intergenerational for 12 hours, but for some, not 24 hours a day. Most do not want to feel like they're sort of parked out to decline away from the rest of society. They want that intergenerational contact, not just simply seeing grandchildren or the visiting church or synagogue group on the weekends. But for some also, though, they are not interested in being woken up at midnight or at 2 a.m. by someone else's noise and someone else's party. So they may enjoy the intergenerational for 12 hours, but not necessarily 24 hours a day. But the new model of senior living will be integrated with the rest of society, not separated from. Integrated with, not separated from. Separated from is kind of saying, we're just waiting for you to decline, keeping you safe, clean, and dry while you decline. Integrated with says, you're still a key part of society. We value your contributions. Retirement for Boomers, my friend Mark Friedman, who founded Encore.org, now called Cogenerate, says it will be one part purpose, one part passion, and one part paycheck, depending upon the individual, their socioeconomic status, and also just who they are. For some, and these aren't mutually exclusive. For some, it may be all three. For others, they need the paycheck. They really can't afford to live just on the Social Security, for instance, that they have. Many residents will still be working, but often in second and third careers. This will be a reality in many senior living communities and what are called life plan communities or CCRCs and what's called active adult, and also even in independent living, that many folks will be continuing to work. Not necessarily, some obviously in the gig economy, not necessarily going to work, but they will be working, either volunteering or in many instances for pay. So key themes, and these are not mutually exclusive, but key themes that I think will shape this future of senior living. One is what I call Wellnessville, which is about the healthy me. And again, that's a focus on health and longevity and wellness. And then Margaritaville, which is the fun me. Disneyland, Disney now coming up with storybook living, Disney themed communities. There's discussion about having a Beatlesville, which again appealing to the boomer generation and the role of the Beatles, but again with an emphasis on fun. Also, Changeville, the activist me. Boomers who were activists in the 60s and 70s, now being activists on whether it's climate change or whether it's education or whatever it may be, environmental issues, social issues. But again, communities, and I could give you examples of 4 or 5 of communities today, each of whom reflect that one of these themes is most pronounced in what draws people. My sister lives in a community in Wake Robin in Vermont, which is, some call it a very Vermonty retirement community, and it is a national leader in eco-awareness and sustainability. And there are other examples of that. Collegeville, and this is communities that are truly integrated on the college campus, not just marketed to the alums to be nearby, but communities, Broadview and the grounds of Purchase College, part of the State University Network of New York, is an example. Mirabel at Arizona State University is another. A third one's being done with Edenwald Living and Goucher College in Baltimore. Another one is in Boston, in Newton, LaSalle Village on the grounds of LaSalle University. So anyway, and this new me, though, is also about learning for a long life, not just lifelong learning, but learning for a long life. Teaching, mentoring, and also taking classes. One of these communities, for instance, the one in Newton, Mass, outside Boston, every resident signs a contract when they come in where they will do 300 hours, that not 300 credit hours, but 300 hours in the classroom, either teaching or taking courses each year that they are there. So we're talking a serious commitment there to lifelong learning for a long life. And then Serviceville, selfless me, volunteering through education, through caregiving, all sorts of ways. And we really saw this come forth out of senior living communities during COVID. And lastly, unfortunately, I have to put the negative theme here, which is the selfish me, Entitledville. And part of the contrast is between whether or not boomers are willing to really be engaged as problem solvers in society and wanted for that, or unwilling, I just want all my benefits, and unwanted. So successful senior living brand, it's the experience, stupid. It won't be called senior living. It must be a metaphor for being alive, not being youthful, but being useful, not a place to disappear and die. It's a challenge for an industry that markets care to meet needs, to offer a place and experiences that lift the spirit and connects with life joys and sense of belonging connection. This model, I would offer, is truly bold, offers an aspirational vision versus being an avoidance product, is an opportunity for senior living and aging services to reinvent itself. So I hope that some of you will choose to go into this field, not only so that you can be the architects in all these different areas I've mentioned of new products, new services, new delivery models, new data and tech platforms, but also so that you can change the ageism in society today so that you will not be seen as consigned to social, cultural, and economic irrelevancy for the last third of your life after age 65, when statistically you are very likely to live to 100 and beyond. So have a great time in the course. Thanks for the time that you've given me today or whenever you're listening to this. And I do have a number of slides in the appendix. I'll just note that talks about these differing views of retirement and aging between the old view and the new view, and then just gives you some stats about the senior housing and care industry that may be helpful to you, and I'm sure that you'll also get into with other in your other classes in this. So again, thanks for listening, and Nancy, back to you.
Thank you, Bob. I was taking notes fast and furious over here, even though I have access to the slide deck. The slide deck is already posted in the Canvas space for your review as students. Again, Bob, you always get the wheels spinning in my head about what could be, what an opportunity is for young people as they think about their next steps in that first career that they may embark on. So thank you. Stay well, and we will see you again in class at another time.
Look forward to it. Nancy, thank you. Darcy, thanks. Lillian, it was great to have you here live, and I look forward to being in class in person in the future. Go Cougs. Take care.
Go Cougs.